Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for coming to the session. I'm John Lucas with WCN, the Okapi Conservation Project. It's a great honor and privilege to introduce Peter Blinston to you of the Painted Dog Conservation. Peter and I have shared many times together in WCN over the years, and we always enjoy each other's company. And I think he's just a remarkable conservation with a real dedication. Peter was interested in dogs since he was 8 years old after watching our guest speaker Jane Goodall and Hugo van Lauswick's film on wild dogs. And a few years later, after learning about Greg Rasmussen's work with painted dogs in Zimbabwe, Peter contacted him. He started to volunteer, and that was 18 years ago. And he has been nonstop since then helping painted dogs survive in the wild. His research looks at all aspects of dog biology, how they use the landscape, predator-prey relations, interactions with communities and people. But the most thing I think is so remarkable about painted dog conservation is their effort to enrich and work with the communities that share this landscape with dogs, which can have an issue with their livestock and other means of their livelihoods. They have an extremely wonderful bush camp program that looks with the 10 to 12-year-old people in the community next to where the dogs live and working with them to understand how people and dogs can coexist. So it was really a great pleasure. I welcome Peter to the stage to tell you about his project.
Thanks, John. I'll try and say something nice about you as well in a minute. But no, it's really a pleasure to be here in San Francisco again, see some old friends, some not so old, and maybe some new friends, who knows. So I'm going to introduce painted dogs to you. The situation out there in the wild, there are fewer than 7,000 left in the wild. The threats to the dogs are many. Habitat loss, disease is a constant threat, road kills, and it's no exaggeration to say that if we don't take action, they will become extinct in our lifetime. And what we firmly believe in is that you have to change lives. If you don't change people's lives, then, stop laughing. If you don't change people, I'm being heckled at the front here. Okay? It's really, shouldn't have sat those people here. If you don't change the people's lives that interact with the dogs on a daily basis, interact with the wildlife on a daily basis, then you will not succeed. You will not make the changes that you need to make if you're going to ultimately save a species like the painted dogs. So I will introduce painted dog conservation to you, what we do on a daily basis out there in Zimbabwe, how we try and change people's lives, and how we try to make the dogs a part of those people's lives. And you can become part of our team. That's the benefit to you. We need your support, we need your help. Many of you in here already are tremendous supporters of the work that we do. This is my two boys. I'm not sure if they will follow on from me or not, or hopefully they'll get a proper job. But my life, talking about changing lives, well, my life changed I don't know, maybe when I was 8 years old, when I watched the documentary that John referred to that was made by Jane Goodall and her husband, Hugo van Lauswick. But my life really changed about 18 years ago when I was decorating my apartment in England at the time. And I was stood there, I was painting the wall. And maybe it was the color of the paint, I'm not really sure, but I just kind of stopped. And my girlfriend at the time, I spoke to her, I said, listen, we have to talk, because this is not really working out. I don't want to be painting this wall the rest of my life. And 18 years later, I ended up in Zimbabwe, 18 years ago, I ended up in Zimbabwe, and as John said, I met Greg Rasmussen. And the original work on dogs started in the mid-80s with an American called Josh Ginsberg, and Greg joined Josh Ginsberg in Zimbabwe, and then I joined Greg, and so on and so forth. And painted dog conservation became a reality. Say 18 years ago, and as John pointed out, I actually went out there just as a volunteer to help Greg, and I stayed. So the dogs, this is one of the first dogs that I ever met. We called iSpot. I'll touch on a little bit of that later in terms of the significance of naming an animal. And those of you who were with us last night heard Jane talk about Cecil, the lion, or Cecil, as you call it. I was somewhere the other day and I said Cecil, and there was all these blank faces, and somebody's like, no, it's Cecil. So, but this is iSpot, and those of you who had joined us out there in Zimbabwe know that our whole visitor centre tells his story. It tells iSpot's story about how his life is synonymous with that, the trials and tribulations of the painted dogs. But it's very easy to fall in love with the dogs. They have many desirable qualities, the social structures within the packs, the caring for the old, the sick, the young. But pups mean everything to dogs. It's like the whole focus of their attention is pups. And there's kind of a communal caring, feeding, protection of the pups. You see them working, the dogs, it's all about teamwork. You see them working together. This picture, that hyena's I can even reach, look. That hyena is hell-bent on getting that pup. And it was the teamwork and the efforts of the pack that prevent it. There's a whole sequence of pictures here, some of them a bit too kind of grisly to show, but the hyena didn't do very well, let me tell you. So this again just shows how the pack situation, which is so important to dogs. It's all about numbers for dogs. Everything is about numbers. Now, I've played that video many times, and I still don't know how many dogs there are, but you get the sense of the numbers game, and also the sense of the size differential between dogs and hyenas. But as I say, changing lives is everything, and this in our world, I mentioned iSpot. This dog, this is Vusile. She was a dog that turned up at our rehabilitation facility there in Zimbabwe. We brought her in. We basically kept her alive. We integrated her into a group of orphans and injured waifs and strays we had, and we released them back into the wild. That overall didn't fare too well. Some were killed and run over, but she survived, and we knew that she was still alive. We would get reports from different safari operators in the area, and 2 years later she turned up with 6 pups, and that's her in the far distance, and her mate is the one at the foreground there, and her 6 pups. Her 6 pups have gone on to form 4 other packs in Wangi National Park. This is Sox, the alpha female of the main pack. That, again, those of you who've been with us in recent years in Wangi have seen Sox. Sox has had 19 pups herself, and her pups, 6 of her pups have gone on to form other packs in Wangi National Park. And overall, this is another one of the packs. That's your picture. I told you I had your picture in there. It's Kathleen's picture. So they've gone on to form so many packs, more than 50 dogs have been introduced into the Wangi population. That's like a third of the population. There's about 150 dogs in Wangi. And that's from one intervention saving the life of one dog. And that's how much difference it can make. But of course, it's not just about the dogs. It's about people. It's about changing people's lives. And it's my pleasure to have Wilton Simango here with me. Stand up. There you go. All right, sit down. You got more applause than I did. Wilton runs my entire education program. Through this program, we reach more than 800 children a year, and we change their lives. For coming to our bush camp is like going to Disney World for these kids. It's massive life-changing experience for them that they never forget. And we've got well-documented evidence that Wilton and his team collect that shows they don't forget the experience that they've had at our bush camp. When this is 10, 11 years old. The experience they have stays with them for the rest of their life, and we have evidence of that. We introduce new concepts to them. A concept as simple as such as photography, but it has far more depth to it than that. It has much more impact than you would imagine. And the kids connect at a much deeper level with the wildlife through the photography. And as I say, changing lives, simple thing. Give them a camera. Never had a camera in their life, the kids. First time they've ever held a camera in their life. And they used to produce pictures like this. Which is kind of one of my better efforts, really. But after a little bit of guidance, a little bit of teaching, they can end up producing pictures of this quality. And it just shows a little bit of guidance. Working with the kids just a little bit makes a huge amount of difference. And this is in the space of a day or so. When we have them with us, they're with us for 4 days. And that's why, in the end, it really makes a huge difference. And if you think or question whether what we're doing is having any impact, ask these kids. Yeah. And they really do. And as I said earlier on about the impact, the effect of the bush camp is very well documented by Wilton and his team. And these are 2 lads that came to the bush camp when they were 10 years old? 11 years old. And this year we recruited them into our anti-poaching unit. We provide other benefits to the communities. Water, a clean, reliable source of water, something we take so much for granted. But in these rural communities, it's a life changer. And alongside these borehole projects, we sink a borehole, they've got water, you set up these nutritional gardens, self-help programs. And what we've seen from this is that the performance of the kids in school improves. The retention of teachers improves because it's a nicer environment for the teachers to be in, so they stay longer. The education the delivery of education is more consistent. I'm sure there's plenty of teachers in here. And even they can also produce surplus crops that they're then able to sell, pay for school fees and that kind of thing. So it's a huge program, makes a massive difference. But it's such a simple thing. Drilling a borehole, putting a pump, it's very simple. Our staff, all of our staff come from the local community, including Wilton. And this is Jealous. Many of you have met Jealous on the right. He's a Disney Conservation Hero Award winner. He's receiving there's a Dutch foundation, gave him a Conservation Hero Award winner as well. But all of our staff, their lives have changed. And many of them have become role models within the community, and the kids look up to them, and they see a future. They see a future employment, a future in conservation. It gives them some direction in life. So as I said, it's all about saving one dog's life one day at a time. It's about changing one person's life one day at a time that makes a difference. And you are part of that solution. So many of you are helping us achieve what we're achieving. And things are improving. This year, we've seen more dogs in areas that people haven't seen dogs in 10 years in their region, and they're reporting we're seeing dogs. And those dogs have come from Wangi National Park, where we do the bulk of our work. So this showed that the environment, what we're trying to do is create this environment where the dogs can thrive. People have talked to us about, breeding dogs and reintroducing them into the wild, all these kind of things. And we're like, hey, if we can remove some or all of the obstacles, of the threats, the dogs will do it themselves. They know how to breed. They've been doing it for many, many years. You know, you just have to create that environment where they can do what they do. This still happens. I'll move on because it's not very nice. Dogs still get killed in snares, and we had a situation earlier this year where the alpha female of one of our study packs killed in a snare. That's the end of the pack. That's it, finished. The pack has gone as a consequence of that. And I waited for a phone call that didn't come. And I was quite shocked by that. I was like, okay, we've been doing all this work. Wilton and his guys have been doing all this work for so many years. That's a bit strange. But what happened is the chief, our local chief, came to see me. And I was waiting for the phone call from him. But he came to my office and he was almost in tears when he started to talk to me. He's like, how could I just phone you? Everything you do for us, everything that has been done for us over the years, whether it be the bush camp, whether it be the refurbishing the local clinics, everything you do, everything the dogs do for us, I couldn't phone you. I had to wait and I had to come and see you in person. And I'm going to tell you what we're going to do for you. So the first thing they did is they arrested 2 poachers that they suspected of setting those snares, and they were removed from the community, which is quite a major thing. But one of the more significantly I felt is that they formed their own anti-poaching units. More than 40 people volunteered, and to this day, they're patrolling every single day, removing snares from the environment. And that's what you're looking for. You're looking for the community to take action. You can change attitude, but changing behavior is the most critical thing if you're going to succeed. But more importantly, more than half of those volunteers attended our bush camp. And that's the impact that it has, that when they're old enough, again, they're in their 20s, their late teens, their 20s, they can now take action. And it's because of what they've learned. It's because of what Wilton and his team have instilled in them whilst they've been with us at the bush camp. And we carry that on. It's not, the bush camp's a 4-day program, but we carry that on into the community, into the schools, into the villages, and conservation becomes part of their daily lives. And that's what makes a difference. So, Jim, you're not in the picture. I think you took it. You can become part of our team. You can help us become part of the solution. whether you come out to Zimbabwe, as many of you have done, or whether you support us financially, we don't mind. We take checks, we take credit cards, cash is always good, whatever it takes. We're very happy to receive it, and thank you, because you're helping us create a brighter future for the dogs, and we really appreciate it.